Hello, and I am so pleased to have an incredible speaker here with us today. So, Jo Gainey is one of the very first certified handwriting specialist teachers in the world. Now, Jo, I would like to know more about you and the school that you teach in, and I want to know, we're going to have a chat anyway. We're just going to find out what it means and what you've been doing with this new knowledge that you have, because I know that you've been teaching all sorts of other teachers these skills now. So introduce yourself and let's get stuck in.
Okay, well, I'm Jo Gainey and I'm the English lead at Chadsmore Infants and Nursery School. So we're a school in Cannock in Staffordshire. We have got a junior school that we're federated with the same head teacher, but it's on another site. And they're just starting to use Start Bee, so they're not quite in the same place as us at the moment. So we started using it in September. We'd had some training in July. It's working really well, apart from obviously lockdowns, which have given us a few issues. But we've managed to do it, even making things COVID safe. So, you know, cleaning resources in between times, not mixing bubbles of children. So even with everything going on, it's worked really, really well. The children are loving it. We've decided this year, after talking to you, Melanie, that all of the year ones and year twos would do the catch up because they'd never done it before. And there were some real issues with pencil control, posture, letter formation. Our reception are also working through lowercase letters, but also doing mini Bs as well. And our nursery children are starting to do some of the mini Bs activities as well. So basically we have 4 year groups who are using it. At the moment, our key worker children are still doing some of the handwriting in school, and we're sharing some of the letter formation with parents at home. So we're still trying to keep it going. We're so frustrated that we've had this pause in everything we're doing because there was big improvements happening. I'm sure they'll carry on, just a bit of a pause. It's been absolutely wonderful. The children love seeing Hannah Jane. They listen to her better than they listen to us sometimes, but I have read that that's because of her intonation, and so, you know, I'm not taking any offence. One of our school improvement partners obviously couldn't come into school, but he saw Jenny, our head, went and videoed the children. In fact, I think she just held up the iPad basically so you could see a class. It was my class, and he said he couldn't believe the engagement, that every child was listening to Hannah Jane, every child was engaged. So it's all working really well, apart from lockdown, which is a pain.
Jo, I want to ask you a question. Now you can be you can think about you can be honest. You don't have to answer these.
Yeah.
Now, because I met your head teacher Jenny a few years back when I was first starting out. She was a head of another school in Walsall in Coventry, and I went through and I did all the training there. I did a handwriting. I actually did the handwriting match fit assessment back then. In those days, I was still honing what I was doing. And I was personally physically going to all the schools and doing the assessment myself. And I realized that I was absolutely balmy. There was just no way that I could do those in every school. And I decided, I thought I'm going to take a step back and develop an e-training so that we can have these handwriting specialist teachers in every school, because it doesn't make sense. We cannot be like Gollum and hang on to this knowledge and keep it to ourselves. So you did the e-training. You did it in the summer holidays, didn't you? Last year,
we did it I did it sort of June, July. It was when we were only teaching part-time.
Okay, that was 2020. That was our COVID.
2020. Yeah.
We had this horrific first lockdown. And then I remember Jenny emailed, and then I spoke with you and I said, okay, go on there, start the process. And then what happened was Jenny booked me in to come to the school with the station and we did an induction, and you and I sat together and we had that deep dive. You and I were doing a deep dive. We were looking at items in the assessments, because you were already quite confidently, I was so impressed. You'd watched the online training, you were already rolling, you had your match fit assessment booklets, you were rolling out that assessment throughout with your key skills workers. I remember those. And then you were saying to me, what about this? What's going on there? And that you taught me such a valuable lesson, because I realized that we have to do these deep dives, these one-on-ones where we look at, because there's so much that we learn on that training, but it's when we are confronted with something that we think, hang on, this wasn't quite there. How do we? And I came through and we did the induction. And I remember Jenny saying to me that was oversubscribed. We couldn't have all of the teachers in that area on that day.
Had to be socially distanced. Yeah, I know. COVID's a nightmare, isn't it?
But what, as a result of that, you are the school's certified handwriting specialist teacher. You are actually in the Multi-Academy Trust. You are the certified specialist teacher, and you are now driving that throughout the school, through that mat. What have you noticed? What is the one thing that you've noticed from your own teaching now that you have done this training? What has changed for you?
Well, it's quite amazing that I wrote some notes. I think I've been teaching for 28 years, which is a bit scary. And there's things you just assume that you know and that you've been emphasising with the children, and then you realise you haven't. Like, I haven't emphasised the pencil control as much as I should have done, although I felt I was. Posture, that was another thing. So that comes into every lesson now. And some children are slouching on the desk, and also the supporting hand. So it hasn't so much been the actual letter formation, which we've always done, and we've always known where to start, where to, which direction. But it's been those three things of really pushing that pencil grip. A lot of my children are still not putting the middle finger behind. So this week in particular, it's been correcting that at a safe distance, of course. And the posture and the supporting hand, because lots of our children, their other hand is under the table, their work is wobbling all over the place, they're slouching down so their eyes are just above the work, and that has gone into every lesson. So I think that has been the main thing, not so much the letter formation, but the actual posture of the children.
And the other thing I want to ask you, the game changer for me was when we'd assessed, it was myself and I still see it, Joe. I was in a classroom with a teacher in Downhall Primary in Rayleigh in Essex, England, because people from around the world are going to be listening to this talk. And I remember looking at her and saying, "Oh, Beck, it's way before reception. It's way before the first year of school." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, didn't you know that?" And I said, "Come on, Beck. We're looking at these handwriting assessments when they've done a year in reception, or they've done sort of like, we started assessing halfway through and we were looking at that." And I said, "They don't have the physical stamina. That core stamina isn't there. The rotator cuffs." And I said to her, "We've got to go and build a whole new program." And that was when I contacted Fiona Cowan and I said to her, "We're in serious trouble." And she said, "Why?" I said, "Because we've missed the essence of where the missing link." I said, "Because look, I didn't realize that I hadn't worked on those fine and gross motor skills with my daughter. I assumed that it was all being done in preschool, and it probably was, but not to the extent that she needed it." So now that you're doing mini bees, you're doing those 10 weeks every single day, because we don't get them to hold, they can choose left or right. There's some very interesting talks. I tell you what, Joe, we had a gentleman, Robert Schramm, who told us that he was forced to write with his right hand, even though he was a left-handed writer. And he said it was when he was about 7, 8, he changed to his left hand. And he said, and that has somehow, he says he uses both hemispheres of his brain. And so he sort of developed something. do you find that the children that are doing, well, you've been doing it for a few months, do you think that those children will be an advantage, those children that are doing mini bees now in early years, preschool, are going to be coming through your system? They're going to be the ones that are going to come in, and you're not going to have all of those issues to contend with, because you've already got, you're going to have strong core stamina, you're going to have the rotator cuffs, you're going to have the spatial awareness, the crossing the midline, all of that. Do you think that that's going to make a difference for you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, we're really playing catch up in year 1 and year 2 at the moment. So hopefully when the reception comes through, they'll have done all that. A lot of our children, unfortunately, don't do those kind of exercises at home. And especially at the moment, a lot of our children are just in the house. You know, some of them can't get out to the park and things at the moment because you're not allowed to go anywhere. So we're having to do all of that in school with them, all the fine motor, all the gross motor. There are some children who do it at home. I have a little boy whose mum is a cook, and he sends me photos of him using a rolling pin, you know, and using all of those muscles. But no, on the whole, a great majority of our children don't get those activities at home, so we need to put them in. So all the gross and all the fine, and like I say, they're doing it in nursery and reception this year. And after this lockdown is finished, hopefully we'll be back onto it again.
The other thing that I need to, did I give you, have I shown you a mini yoga for your children? You can use it as, they can use it at home, blended learning. Remind me after the talk.
Okay.
And then what we'll do is I will show you mini yoga, because that will help them develop that core stamina, and again, crossing the midline and just breathing, because we need to build that diaphragm, those strong diaphragm muscles. Let's go back onto the assessment. When you and I were looking at some of the children's assessments, we were flagging up some issues, and one of them was DCD. We were finding those ones that were hopping out at us. We were going, right, we've got some dyspraxia here, and we now know what those bumps are in the road, and we need to negate them. How have you found being able to sort of share this information with the rest of the teaching staff in the school?
I think it's really flagged up the children who need the extra interventions, because at the moment we're using catch up not as an intervention, we're using it for a whole class. But then from the assessments and from the lessons, the Start Bee lessons that we're doing, it quickly flags up those children who are struggling, those children who are struggling to hold their pencil correctly, are struggling to form the letters correctly. So we do have intervention lessons going on in the class as well. So we have the catch up and we have the interventions on top of that. Yeah, the match fit assessment is very interesting. I think the more we do it, the better we will get. We were quite nervous, even myself, who sat with you for a whole morning. So we were quite nervous. So we actually focused on certain things. We focused on the pencil control. We focused on giving the children a number, not worrying too much about a number, but looking who could form the letters correctly and who couldn't. We did look at hypermobility, but at the moment that wasn't our biggest issue. So I think next year when we redo the match fit assessment, I think it will be different. We'll be a step further on. And some of the staff were getting very nervous about it, you know, oh, what if I put the wrong number? What if I do this? And I had to say to them, it doesn't matter. We just need a baseline. I'm sure next time we do it, we'll be so much better at it. So we did it. Sorry, we did it with the match fit assessment with year 1 and year 2 in September, and we will repeat it with them in the summer, but also the reception will do the match fit assessment as well.
So you're going to be delivering now from September, and then in June, July.
Yeah, around that time.
Match fit assessment then.
Yeah.
For your end of reception children.
Yeah, but we also want to do.
You will take into account that they haven't had the full program because of the COVID.
Yes,
so that's one thing.
And we'll also probably repeat it again with that, because our year 1s and 2s have been doing catch up, and they did the match fit assessment in September. We want to repeat it so that we can see progress.
Yes, you want to be having, because you want to see which children have moved onwards and upwards, and then you're going to flag those children that still need that intervention, so that you can really target them in the next year when they go up to year 2. What age range do you go to in your school, Jo?
So on our site, it's nursery to year 2. Yes. So that's up to, they have their 7th birthday with us. But then within our federation, our juniors is up to age 11. And they are starting the Start Bee as well now. They saw us doing it and they wanted to do it as well, which is great.
So they're a different age group now. So you're in your one school, you are doing the juniors. You're running mini bees in early years, mini bees in reception, and you're doing your catch up in year 1 and 2, and you're doing beginners in reception. Okay. Yeah. And then in your other school,
it will be interventions.
You're doing the interventions.
It will be interventions. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you find now that you can do the match fit assessment, because you put together an entire school strategy. You were able to assess the children. You were able to then download that data from the assessment booklet. Every child had their own personal strategy, and you were able to put that onto the spreadsheet. And then not all schools do this, but you could upload it onto your school's data tracking software so that you can see who's going up a point, because you want to be able to show Ofsted or wherever you are in the world, if you have an inspecting body, that when they come to the school and they want to know about handwriting, they can see that you've assessed, you've done your class-wide assessment, year group assessment, school-wide assessment, you've ascertained which children need an intervention, you've put them, you can see. What is so interesting with it is it shows you little things. You think, why that letter? Why is that letter still, what's going on there? Why are we still struggling with this? Okay. And like you've said, posture is your main intervention where you are now. Posture, supporting hand, because if you don't have that strong supporting hand, the whole body is off balance. So, and you develop that posture by doing your mini bees and your mini yoga. You're developing those really strong back muscles, diaphragm muscles. Everybody, the chest is up. Do you know what I learned the other day? I met a lady who teaches the Alexander technique. And she showed me this video of breathing, of the lungs, of the breath going. And I just said, oh, that's mini bees. And she said, what are you talking about? And I said, I didn't realize it strips everything away. It takes all the muscles away. It takes all it gets to the bones. And it shows you what happens to your posture when you breathe properly, and you have all this fantastic, strong skeletal-muscular control. And I said, that's what you're developing. You are developing the entire body. Now, I want to ask you the importance of learning to write. Why is it important for you as a teacher to teach children to write by hand? I mean, come on, Jo, we're in a digital age. Tell me why. What's going on?
Well, last year as well, as a staff, we did some pedagogy projects and looked at the way we learn and the way we retain knowledge. That the group I was in, it was called stickability, which basically meant how do we retain knowledge. And I discovered from that the only way I can take in knowledge is from writing things down. And I realized that a lot of children are like that as well. Not all children. So that is one reason, because the physical process of actually writing on a piece of paper, it seems to send the messages to the brain. And I am definitely like that, because just by somebody talking to me, I don't take everything in. So I know not all children are like that, but a lot of children are. But also it's another way of expressing themselves. I mean, we talk about writing for a purpose. You've got, when you're writing, you have an audience. And I need these children to be able to express themselves so others can read their writing. If they can't read, somebody can't read their writing, then what is the purpose? And also as well, I think that we give an image of ourselves through our presentation of our writing. You know, someone with very messy writing, it looks like they haven't really taken much time. So we want to build up the children's self-esteem as well. So there's lots of reasons. I hope I've put across what we feel there. Quite a few reasons for doing writing. You know, yes, it's all well and good. We need keyboards, and, you know, there's so much more technology. And because of COVID, we've all had to have a steep learning curve of Zoom, Teams, uploading videos to YouTube, and but we still need to teach children how to write at the end of the day.
How do you think, what would happen if you didn't teach children to write?
Well, they'd lose that physical process. They'd lose the fine motor skills would I don't know what would happen to those, because the more they write, the better they get. And I've said this to all the parents, you know, at the moment parents are trying to do home learning and getting stressed about home learning and trying to work as well. And look, just let them do some work. But I really have pushed carrying on the handwriting at home, carrying on writing at home, because we need them to practice. We don't know how long this lockdown is going to go on. We only have a quarter of the children in school, so the rest are learning at home, and we need them to come back, and we don't want them to lose those fine motor skills, that posture, that pencil control, everything. We worked so hard last term, and we're so frustrated that we can't be carrying on in school at the moment.
What would you recommend parents do at home? Would you like to give them mini bees, access to mini bees at home and mini yoga at home, for them to do that at home as a blended sort of flexi physical learning? Would that help?
It'd be great if we could. Yeah, there's lots of our children who need it. Yeah,
I think we should if you ask, send a newsletter out to the parents. If you give me a spreadsheet, on condition that if you give me the spreadsheet of the parents' names and emails, the deal is that I will never ever communicate with the parents.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to have anything to do with the parents. So as long as you lead that, and you at the beginning of every week or very lesson, you say, right, this week we're going to do these mini bees, and this is the time we're going to do it, and this is why we're going to be doing it. So, and you need to watch the lesson before you do it, so that you have all the ingredients to hand, and it's all stuff that they have at home.
Okay, I'll sort that out with you later.
Yeah, that's great. So I think that might just help you a little bit, so that when they come back, that you haven't had too much of a gap.
Yeah.
Would you consider, now that you've been doing this training and you are developing, because you're still finding your feet with it, as you are doing the assessment now, you will do your follow-on assessment. I know that with some teachers, with like Sarah Cooper, who's now a dab hand at doing these assessments, she goes and does the assessments for the entire cluster up in Derbyshire. I don't know how. It takes a few years as your knowledge develops. Would you ever want to become a doctor of handwriting? Would you ever want to do a master's degree or a PhD on the history, science, and psychology of handwriting?
Ask me again in a year or two. At the moment, with everything that is going on, teaching in school and the home learning, it's too much at the moment. We're really up to it at the moment. Maybe in a year or two.
I would love
come back to me. And also when we've done the match fit assessments more at the moment, you know, I still need to practice it. You know, that the lessons are going fine, but the match fit assessment is a bit, because we've only done it once. Yes. That I feel that the more we do it, it's like anything, isn't it? So yeah, come back to me in about a year or two. I might have changed my mind.
When you do next year, when you do your match fit assessment next year, June, July, give me a shout, and I'll come through and I'll spend time with you and your team, and we'll go through. We'll do them together, and then we'll make sure that we're getting everything right, and then we will check those flags. We'll have a look at your data. We'll look at what you had, your baseline data. We will take into account that your follow-on data is going to be quite different to a normal school year, because you've obviously had children that are not in, that have been in school and then suddenly they are no longer in school and home learning. But there are ways, and we're even looking at doing the match fit assessments online as to how we can do them online. And I think that if we start showing parents, we could even send the assessment booklet to the parents. We could do it on Zoom with a parent there, and we could book in a slot with them, and the parent would take the photograph. And I think that you'd start getting parents to understand how important this process is. But you also have to take into account that some parents are like me, and they are like helicopter parents, tiger mothers, and that is not a good thing. So you don't, you make sure, when I did the training with the kindergarten starters in Dubai, I had to say to the teachers, you do not send these assessments home. Do you understand me? And they were like, why? I said, because you and I know that you're going to have those mothers and dads and grannies and granddads and aunties and who are going to go, why can't you write this lowercase letter? Come and sit over here. So it's very difficult to explain to parents that we don't even teach the children to write the alphabet as they would see it. We don't start with the A's, you know, with Start Bee, we start with the I and then L and then T. We start, it's a whole process. And it's, the other thing that we learned was those embedded messages, the way that Hannah Jane tells them through in a process where she says, sit up straight, shoulders back. Because if you and I repeat that over and over, they're just going to zone out. Now, there's an actual science to that. Did you know that?
No, I didn't
know that. You know that we are hardwired, our DNA, we are genetically hardwired to drop everything when a child is in distress. When we hear when we are that age, there must be there's some fantastic research out there that we must get our hands on. And if there's anybody listening here that is a specialist in this field, that when a child speaks, a child listens. That peer-to-peer learning is so important for them. They listen and accept a message and an instruction from a child. Then when they listen to our voice, their ears have already gone, oh no, they've redirected the listening field. But when we hear a child in distress as an adult, we instantly, when we hear that child saying, you know, like Greta Thunberg, you've stolen my life, you've stolen my dreams. And they do it with that, we all stop and we go, how can we fix this? So there is definitely a science to it. The other thing that we noticed was when I was with Downhall, there were two little boys that were autistic. And when the real life Hannah Jane went into the classroom, they didn't want to see the child. They preferred the autistic, the SEN children. They were happier to have Hannah Jane on the screen flat. So that is another bit of research, it was very interesting, because there she was in the flesh, and they were like, no, this is not, no, we don't like, no, can you rather give us what we're used to? We like that. Joe, where do you see yourselves going from here? Where do you see the school and your pupils going to from here? How is handwriting going to impact on your academic outcomes and attainments and the personal attainments? Where do you see it going?
Well, we've got a big push on the presentation of the children's work. So Start Bee really ties into that. So that's our big thing, making the children proud of their work. For every piece of work they do, making sure they're forming the letters correctly, and you know that they've got their posture and they've got their supporting hand. So that's the big thing for us. It isn't just the letter formation, it's building their self-esteem and you know how proud they are of their work.
So those children will be getting their pen licenses and everybody will be, that's amazing. Joe, I'm so very proud of you. I don't want to start blubbing like a big baby here, but you know that you are a game changer. You are a leader in your field. You are one of the very first certified handwriting specialist teachers in the world. And I know that your head teacher, Jenny Wesley, is incredibly proud of you. And I am so proud when I see what you've been doing and the way that you've taken to this like a duck to water. You were fearless when I came through. Not everybody will look at it, and I know that some schools, when we do the Matchfit assessments, they're in a heap on the floor and they don't realize that that's their baseline. You looked at it and you said, this is my baseline, this is what I now have to work with, and I'm going to change this in my school. My school is going to lead in its community, it's going to lead. So folks, if you want to get hold of Jo, she is your go-to person in Cannock, in that region of the United Kingdom. But I know you're going to be an absolute superstar. I'm really looking forward. Sorry, I'm crying here. I need to stop. I'm looking forward to seeing the children's work. I'm looking forward to working with you. I'm so sorry that you've had to contend with COVID, but in a way, you are one of those few schools that can actually now assess for lost learning. You know, you have the skill set and the knowledge and the understanding of what to look for, so that when they come back, you can do the assessment with them and you can see which child has been working at home and which child is going to need that intervention. And that is a really good place to be in, because it's knowledge and an understanding of it. It's not just about writing, it's all those added little things that, that fit in together. So I'm so pleased, I'm so proud, I cannot. And so next year we've got it booked in. You just tell me the dates. I will be coming to do that handwriting Matchfit assessment with you. And you are the first school, you're the first and only school to ever put my picture up on the wall.
Oh.
My husband came back and said, look who's on the wall. And I said, what? And I couldn't believe it. I just said, nobody's ever recognized what I've done. And I just said, that is so sweet. And I was like, I was really touched by that. So I want to say thank you. And to you and your teachers, you're on an incredible journey, and the only way is up from here. The only way is up from here. So thank you so very much. And we will most certainly be following up on this conversation in a year's time. We will have another virtual award ceremony for the next cohort, and we will ask you for your experience over the year, because it's going to be invaluable to share it with teachers and parents and head teachers, principals, with schools around the world. We have got to share this knowledge. If we've learned one thing from COVID, if we are going to have a recovery curriculum globally, we must share our knowledge and our experience, because it is going to be required and necessary for the lost learning around the world. Thank you, Jo.
Okay.
You are amazing. Gosh, you've got me blubbing.